Tonight, it's DC Comics Goes to the Movies as we have Superman meets Predator, Savage Hawkman meets the Da Vinci Code, and Teen Titans meets, I don't know, something by Tommy Wiseau or something. All that and more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 47 of the Not-So-New 52. I am your host and I have nothing to really say here in the intro. I know this gets old, me saying that I have nothing to say over and over again, but it's hard to make constant current news when I'm talking about stuff that happened 10 years ago. So, 10 years ago, Dark Knight Rises came out. That's it. That's all that was really of note. So, chew on that for a while. Anyway, let's talk about comics coming out this week. July 25th, 2012, we had 14 comics, including the number 11 issues of Batman the Dark Knight, Superman, Green Lantern New Guardians, Aquaman, The Flash, The Fury of Firestorm, The Savage Hawkman, All-Star Western, Voodoo, Teen Titans, iVampire, and Justice League Dark. In addition, something I do want to talk about, we have the number 1 issue of National Comics Eternity. I believe I said this at the end of the show last week, but National Comics was just a little line DC put out for a few months saying, hey, we got the rights to some characters that we actually literally never used, to the point where we're about to lose trademark. Let's go ahead and use them here. So this one is about Kid Eternity, now rebranded Eternity. It's written by Jeff Lemire with art by Cully Hamner, and spoiler alert, it's pretty good. So stick around and check that out. Don't you dare skip forward. You got to listen to the whole show in between. So let's get it started with Batman the Dark Knight. Batman the Dark Knight, number 11, written by Gregg, Hurwitz, art by David Finch. Last issue left off with Bruce and his girlfriend Natalia getting in a fight and Jim Gordon getting abducted by Scarecrow. This issue picks up with literally both those things just happening again. We see that Jim is in the clutches of Scarecrow and he says, all right, let's get to work. And then we get to Bruce in Natalia's apartment and she's like, hey, sorry for that fight we had. What do you want to do afterwards? And he says, after what? And then they get into a fight again about how he's not present and blah, blah, blah. And she goes on this whole long thing of like, look, I was raised in Ukraine. I've been in some tough situations and I recognize you have your own issues here. But can we please, for the love of God, just like get through this? And then Bruce's phone goes off. It's Alfred telling him that Gordon's been captured, and he drives off doing his bat thing. And that's the last we get in Natalia, the whole issue. So we see that Batman meets up with Harvey Bullock at the home of Jim Gordon. We see the homeless guy outside is still fear toxined, I guess. And Batman goes inside, and immediately they're like, yeah, this is where he was probably taken. The bathroom's a mess. And Batman's like, okay, well, let me just take a little sample off the wall, which immediately says fear toxin. So, Scarecrow, he's already on the case. We then get a weird 3-panel page. It's effective, but it's weird. Of a playground. A bunch of kids are playing around. Top panel, they're just playing. Second panel, still playing. Scarecrow's now appeared in the bushes. And then third panel, the kids are playing, but now there's one less kid. And there's just footprints leading to and back into, like, the bushes. Effective. I like the page and what it's doing, but it's just so weird to have in the middle here. So then we see him dose this girl he took with fear toxin, saying like, oh, don't worry, this is for your own good. And then we get Scarecrow's backstory, which apparently was his father. I don't even know if he has a name besides the original Dr. Crane, is running tests on his son of basically just scaring the ever-loving crap out of him. He puts him down in this cellar and has like all these wires hooked up to him in order to read his vitals. And he's like, yes, my son he's freaking out. That's good for science. So then he talks to the girl again and saying like, oh, don't worry, you'll experience far worse next time. But the girl manages to snap out of it long enough to recognize that Scarecrow sewed his lips together, which I think I mentioned last issue. And she's like, "Are you okay, mister?" And he's like, "You caring about me? Psh, you're going to be in a lot more pain than I am, kid. God." So then we get a flashback to young Bruce running with a kite outside the manor. He falls down into the cave and all the bats are there, and that's where he gets his phobia of bats. And we see his father. His mother's comforting him, but his father's just like standing over him. And I'm not entirely sure what they're trying to say there, besides the fact that maybe Scarecrow and Bruce both had uncaring fathers, but that kind of goes against everything I know about Thomas Wayne as pop culture. So regardless, we then see him drive his way back towards Claire, that girl who was taken last issue that showed back up again and is now mute. And he's just like, "Hey, another girl's been taken along with a dear friend of mine. Can you tell me anything?" And she's just mute, and he keeps on trying until eventually he's like, "So what's your stuffed animal's name?" And finally she speaks up. She says it's Ducky. And he asks Ducky if he remembers anything. And Ducky says that it was a black van belonging to the Hello Man. And he's like, "What do you mean the Hello Man?" And she writes out that the license plate was HLLW Man, Hollow Man, which is somehow Scarecrow. So yeah. So anyway, he tracks down the location of the van. We see it sitting outside. Mind you, they do say here on the page right beforehand, it was a black van. But then on the very next page, you see the van, and it's very clearly red, and it's definitely not been anywhere in the past, year. So I don't know what to make of that. Anyway, Batman, he runs some infrared thing, sees the gyms inside, and he immediately starts bum rushing the house. And as soon as he makes his leap, Scarecrow kicks open the front door with what looks to be a modified shotgun, blasts Batman with some fear toxin, pushes Batman into a fake bush which leads down into a minecart shaft underneath the house, to which Scarecrow opens up a fake panel under the deck and just jumps right down. Then he jumps on top of Batman, uses some syringe fingers to dose him with fear toxin, and just drives down the minecart shaft. What in the hell is this book? I genuinely, it had a mood to it. And the mood is very hard for me to get across to you, but it did have a mood to it. But what? What? I don't even... It's just kind of a little off-putting. It's not even like a, wow, no, this really is it. It's like, okay, it's just a little off-putting is the mood. Looks great. I'm not going to... David Finch's art is perfectly fine here, but story-wise, I don't know... what are we doing here? I understand the basic beats of the story here. Yeah, no, Scarecrow's doing his Scarecrow, test things. Fine, whatever. But, what are we doing here, for real? It's just such a weird off-kilter story. And I honestly don't know how to put it any other way. Just as soon as we got to the page of him bum rushing the house, and then Scarecrow just kicks open the front door, pushes him down a minecart shaft, and then hops down a secret passageway under his own deck as well. I was like, all right, so this is just stupid now. That's what we're doing, is we're just all right, none of this matters. Because of the art, I can't fault it too bad, but I'm going to give this one I'm giving this a 6. And that is very generous. I really do think 5.5 is probably closer, but I'm giving it a 6 just because I'm at least having fun reading it. If you're taking this seriously, it's stupid, but I'm at least having fun with it. So 5.5, I don't even know where we can go from there. Superman number 11, written and art by Dan Jurgens. Last issue we left off with a whole different thing, but there is the one subplot of a Russian sub went down and Superman went to fix it. This issue picks up with the Russians. He just goes to the Russian place and he's trying to figure out, okay, something went crazy wrong here because all of these scientists are dead. So what could it be? And he comes across a chamber that doesn't look like it was man-made and something broke out of it. And he goes to analyze the footage of what happened. And basically the scientists on the footage are like, good thing Superman saved our sub but didn't look inside this container thing we got. Well, let's go ahead and open it up. Oh my God, there's something inside. And then the footage cuts out. And then he turns around to someone yelling freeze at him, which reminds him of earlier that night when someone also says freeze to him. He is on a double date with Lois and her date John Carroll and Lois's sister, Lucy, who he stood up like 3 issues ago, and I didn't think we'd ever actually get back to this. Regardless, he's very prepped to not like John. Also, Lois said that Clark's going to be paying for the whole thing, and it's a very swanky restaurant, so he's a bit miffed about that. But he's prepared to not like John, but John's actually like a stand-up guy. And Lucy is very much hitting on him, and he's like, oh, well, you know, maybe we can make something happen here. But then his boss, Morgan Edge, shows up, and Lois basically just chastises him, being like, hey, nice job running that wrong Superman story. And he's like, hey, nice job not getting ratings. But then immediately all of their phones go off, and, you know, the Russian thing happened of all these scientists are dead. So everyone has to run out, and they leave Lucy with the bill. Har har. So the cover of this issue has a thing of Secret of the Suit revealed, which he goes up onto the roof, he's wearing just a Superman t-shirt, and then all it says here, and I'm going to quote the whole thing, is the Kryptonian biotech did its thing, head to toe, Superman was ready to fly. And that's it. That's all you get. That's the secret of the suit. It just appears, which we already knew. I think that was in like Action. So whatever. Anyway, he's being held, like there's a bunch of Russians aiming guns at him. They all shoot at him and he melts their guns. And then he speaks to them in Russian saying, hey, I'm not here. I didn't do this. I'm here to help. And then there's some like secret agent guy named Ivan who can speak English, and he's like, well, Superman, clearly you are here to fight the good fight, so we got something that allows us to fight you. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, we wanted our own Kryptonian, and so we found this portal to another dimension, and we just looked into it, seeing if we could get anything, and eventually we found that this pod came through it. So we scooped up that pod, and inside of it was something that even we couldn't control. So Superman's like, all right, cool. Do you know where it went? And he's like, yeah, there's a nuclear reactor to the west. It's that way. And he's like, cool. Bye. And I don't know if it's going to come up later, but apparently Ivan was like a double agent and he worked in the U.S. government. I'm bringing it up just in case. I doubt it's going to matter. So he heads towards this nuclear reactor town, and the entire town is just dead. Like, everything here has been killed. And he's looking over all the men, women, and children dead, and then something throws like a grenade at him, but it's very futuristic looking. And he's like, dear Lord, that actually managed to hurt me. What is this crazy technology? And it keeps on blasting him constantly. And long story short, it's a predator. Like, I have no better words for it. It is an alien with, like, dreadlocks and a mask and, like, 2 knives coming out as, like, claws. It is a predator. 200%. And it's attacking Superman. And it's actually doing some pretty hard damage. It's actually tearing through his suit, which, after he hits it hard enough with different things, Superman's like, wait a minute, I think he's controlling those weapons telepathically. And then, you know, it doesn't help Superman to know that. He still explodes. And the issue ends with the Predator coming up on a now seemingly unconscious Superman, knives drawn, ready to kill. Okay. Here's the thing. They named the girl from last issue, and I've already forgotten what it was in this issue. But regardless, this feels like the exact same thing. Like, it feels like we are literally just doing something that is just padding for whatever reason. Like, I don't know what the goal of this story is here. If it's just hey, Superman's fighting Predator, okay, I'm fine with that. But they're introducing this Lucy subplot. They're introducing these Russians. They named one of the Russian characters and gave him some actual backstory. But all it feels like is next issue, Superman's just going to finish fighting this thing, and then we're never going to see it again. And I don't have a problem with that, but I do wonder, like, what are we doing in the overarching here? Because this Lucy thing started last plot, so clearly he has some sort of an idea of, like, okay, we're going to slowly build up Lucy as this character that does something. But I genuinely can't tell what. I mean, I did gloss over that dinner pretty effectively, but honestly, it's just a lot of flirting. Like, that's really all it is. So, I don't know. I genuinely, like, this issue isn't offensively bad. It's not good by any means. It's just, here, it just feels like they need to have Superman as a title, but they have no idea what kind of story they can tell. So I got to give it like a 5. Also because the art, while not bad, is definitely not anything standout. Dan Jurgens, he knows his craft, but he's not a super amazing in this. So yeah, 5 for this, and hopefully we figure out what we're doing soon. Green Lantern number 11, written by Geoff Johns, art by Doug Mahnke. Last issue we left off with Hal pleading with the Indigo Tribe to let Sinestro go with him, and Black Hand dying and coming back to life. This issue picks up with basically just the same follow-up of that, where Sinestro's having some flashbacks of him as an early Green Lantern, working side by side with Hal, and then all of a sudden he gets kicked out of the Indigo Tribe. And Hal's like, hey, buddy, you're free of the Indigo Tribe now. I made a deal. And by the way, the guy who made the Indigo Tribe, lantern, he fixed my ring. So now I can hurt you. Watch. And then he blasts Sinestro. He's like, sorry, just had to try that. Anyway, let's get going. And Sinestro's like, hold up. I'm looking around. I'm seeing a lot of Indigo Tribe members question, where's Black Hand? And they go and investigate the place where Black Hand, quote unquote, died. And they're like, well, he was here. Sinestro goes, well, he's not now, which means he's back, you idiot. You let Black Hand go free? Ugh. And there's some slime there that's from the same slime from the Black Lantern Corps, so issues with that. Someone cuts a Black Hand, and he went and got some Chinese food, killing everybody in the restaurant in the process. And then he goes to a graveyard where his family is apparently laid to rest. And he says, rise, and they all come out of their graves, and he's like, hello, everyone. I brought dinner. So that's just a fun little scene, if I'm being honest. It's just a fun little scene to see him standing on top of these zombies with Chinese food. Then we cut to the Guardians, who are just looking at a map of the universe, and they see Sinestro's ring come online, and they're like, huh, he's in a sector of supposedly empty space. Wonder what he's doing out there. And then all of a sudden he blinks out again and reappears back in his home sector, and they're like, huh, that's weird. And then we see the Indigo Tribe has teleported Sinestro back to his planet. And they're like, well, good luck with your attacking the Guardians plan. The Indigo Tribe managed to cure me of my murderous ways, so hopefully it'll work for them. By the way, Sinestro, if you ever do bad again, I will be back. And he's like, if I ever do bad again, I'm going to kill you. So they make their way through the sewers of Korrigar, just basically talking about whether or not they think they can actually fix the Guardians. Sinestro thinks that they may be beyond saving, but Hal's not so sure. And then they get into the debate of whether or not Black Hand is able to be saved, and Hal's even a little bit unsure on that. Cutting black to Black Hand, who's still just having dinner with his zombie family. He's making conversation with them, but they're not talking back, and it's just a one-sided thing of no, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and kill as many people as possible. Then I'm going to raise them like I did you, and then I won't be an outcast anymore. Everyone will be like me, and the world can be a happy family. So that's his plan. So we eventually make it over to Sinestro's base of operations, and he's here to pick up the Book of Black, which is, I guess, a book that has to do with the Black Lantern Corps. Gonna be honest, never read Darkest Night, so kind of running on just what I vaguely know about it. But makes his way into Sinestro's cave, which is apparently 20 square miles in size. And Hal comes across a wedding photo between Sinestro and Aaron Sur, to which Sinestro promptly explodes it and says, that's the past, we're moving forward, let's go. So they make their way over to the Book of Black, and Sinestro claims, all right, here's the deal. There were a bunch of prophecies in here, and they said that after the Blackest Night, great evil's going to rise up from within the Green Lantern Corps, and the Guardians are going to replace us with something called the Third Army. So let's see what that's all about. And they crack open the Book of Black, and immediately Sinestro and Hal and Black Hand are all hit with some weird prophecy vision thing. And in it, we see some Manhunters, Red Lantern It looks almost like Kyle, might not be. Guy Gardner's in jail. The Manhunters are being led by Atrocitus. The Guardians are there. And there's a new Green Lantern. I don't want to spoil who it is because I know who it is, but there's another Green Lantern showing up. And then all of a sudden, when they snap out of it, we see that Hal and Sinestro have been teleported to the dinner table of Black Hand. And that's where we leave off. I like it. I think it's solid. I thought we were already done with the Indigo thing. Like, they didn't hang on it for too long, but it was weird that last issue I thought they were just like, okay, bye now. And then this issue they were like, oh wait, but like we're doing the actual long goodbye here, where it's like, okay, well, we'll teleport you off planet and do all this extra stuff. So I do like how Hal now has a separate ring. I don't because this one would have been made independent of the Guardians. Yes, this one would just be its own separate ring, which opens up a whole lot of weirdness to it. And I'm interested to see if they'll play with that, but it doesn't seem like they're caring about it all that much. It seems like it's more a thing of, yeah, no, he just has a fully functioning Green Lantern ring now. So, whatever. Love the art. Doug Mahnke is obviously fantastic at what he does. And I do like Black Hand stuff here because he doesn't even seem like he's doing the villain bit. Obviously, he's killing people, and that's a thing. But, like, he's just sitting down and having dinner with his dead family. I don't know. He seems more like a child than he does any actual sort of threat. Obviously, he is, but still. I like it. I think it's solid throughout. I'm going to go into this one I give it a 7.5, mainly because it just seems a bit more expository than it does any actual forward motion. I know that the ring thing seems like forward motion, and the prophecy is definitely forward motion, but it still comes across in a more expository way. It doesn't really come across as okay, well, we're doing this thing now. So 7.5. I am liking where it's going. I'm interested in the Third Army stuff, which I believe starts relatively soon, actually, within the next few issues, definitely. So we will see what happens when we get there, but enjoying this issue so far. Green Lantern New Guardians number 11, written by Tony Bedard, art by Tyler Kirkham. Last issue left off with the entire Blue Lantern planet being attacked by the Reach thing, and this issue's pretty much just picks up where 2 issues ago left off, except now Saint Walker is really, really pissed at Larfleeze. And also we got to get Bleeze back in the book because she went off to do Red Lantern stuff. So Monk teleports her in. Bleeze is pissed off that she was snatched, and then Kyle immediately is like, all right, calm down. Everyone good? We know what we're doing. We're going to attack Larfleeze. And Weapons Master, who's still there for Arkilla, was like, hey, I'm not really a part of this. Can I go? And he's like, no, sorry, you got to stay because we have nowhere else for you to go at the moment. So then we cut over to Akara, and Larfleeze is looking over his collection of constructs, and he's like, wait a minute, there's a hole here. Where's this one? And Sade is telling him, oh, that's Glomulus. You sent him with the rest of the lanterns to go kill Invictus. And so he spawns Glomulus again from his ring, and Glomulus is genuinely upset that he died. He's like, where's my friends? And Sade is like, oh, a bounty hunter killed you, and he had very specific technology, but don't worry, your friends are alive. And Larfleeze is like, hey, Sade, how did that bounty hunter know how to kill my... Are you selling my secrets to the enemy? And Sade's like, I am your slave. If you think I'm spying on you, you are more than welcome to let me go. And he's like, nah, it's not going to happen. Wait a minute, there's someone on my planet. And then we cut to the New Guardians who have arrived on his planet. And immediately he just shows up and says hey, you guys said you'd kill Invictus, and now you cut a deal with him? What's going on here? And Kyle's like, how could you possibly have known about that? To which Larfleeze reveals that he knows everything that his constructs knows. And for some reason, Glomulus has this super sad look on his face, like he just got caught out in betraying them, despite the fact that there's no way he could have known that. But then, just to add insult to injury, Kyle's like, Glomulus, I thought we were friends. And then a giant battle breaks out, and really there's not a whole lot to that. So we cut over to Invictus, who's moving his orrery around the Vega system. And he comes to one of the planets that he has a copy of. And he's like, hey, planet Io, you guys are all sinners. You don't worship the good ways anymore. So I'm going to destroy your planet and replace it with my own. And he just lets out an energy blast, completely destroys the planet, and leaves his new ILO there. And they're like, oh, hey, praise God. And he's like, don't worry, I'll be back. But first I need to take care of a little Larfleeze problem. So cutting back to the fight, the Blue Lantern, St. Walker, he's like, hey, Larfleeze, why did you send the Reach after my planet? They were no threat to you. And Larfleeze is like, I didn't do that. I don't know what you're talking about. And then we see a 2-page spread, for whatever reason, of Monk, who I guess the Indigo tribe are able to sample the different powers of other lanterns. And he's attacking all these constructs with all these different core types, and they're not doing anything. So then Kyle steps up and he's like, hey, why not channel the Orange Lantern core? That might do something. And then he does, and it does something. And then Larfleeze gets all pissed off that someone else is using his color. So then Larfleeze is about to attack Kyle. Glomulus steps in the way. He's like, no, he's my friend. To which Larfleeze then just blasts Glomulus out of existence, which then pisses off everyone enough because I guess they all actually really liked Glomulus. And so they're like, for Glomulus, guys. And they all use their constructs to bind up Larfleeze. And Larfleeze is crying out for Sade, like, Sade, my slave, save me. To which Sade is like, I was never your slave, you idiot. And starts blasting him with energy and revealing how she was actually the mastermind behind the whole thing. She's the one who killed those lanterns in order to steal their rings and blah, blah, blah. And Kyle's like, you're the one who did it? And she's like, yeah, I mean, I feel like you have to understand under those circumstances. To which Fatality's got Larfleeze, like, dead to rights, is about to kill him. And then Kyle's like, wait, hasn't there been enough killing? To which, personally, me reading it, I say no. Like, clearly this is a Batman killing the Joker sort of situation, but, like, a lot worse because he's on a cosmic scale of death here. But yeah, no, let's just go ahead and take the moral high ground. But Fatality's like, well, all right, but if we got to figure out some way to keep fighting Larfleeze and also taking care of that, seeing that Invictus has arrived with his solar system. And that's where it leaves off. Okay, yeah. I mean, I feel like it made sense that it was Sade the whole time. Like, once it was revealed that it wasn't Larfleeze, and I believed him when he said that, I feel like it made sense that it had to be Sade of trying to frame Larfleeze. That makes the most sense here. Honestly, now that we've hit this point in the story, I feel like Invictus wasn't really that big of a thing. Honestly, I mean, I know this issue just took a step away from him, but we've actually had I think 4 issues away from him now. Because I think the last issue they had him was like issue 7 or something. We've had quite some time away from Invictus. And really, it just seems more of the fact of, here is an unbeatable foe. Here is just a force of nature that's going to force you into conflict with Larfleeze. So, this story was really all about just taking care of Larfleeze in the end. And honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that they very clearly reminded me here, I probably would have forgotten about the whole stealing the rings thing that this entire story began with. It just didn't seem pertinent at all. So I guess it's more of an evolving sort of thing of, okay, here's something that we're doing now and then it's influencing this thing later. I don't have a problem with it. It's just weird to me how the things that began what you would consider to be this arc just came up as so insignificant in the end, where it's like, oh, a bunch of lanterns have died from each core. And like, it really didn't matter in the end. So for this particular issue, it felt a little bit disjointed. Like, you got that one thing with Monk just sampling powers. You got the thing where Glomulus betrayed them for whatever, but, like, didn't. It just felt a little bit disjointed to me personally. Art-wise, fantastic, though. Don't have an issue with that. So overall, I give it I give it a very high 6.5, but still a 6.5. Yeah. I mean, I'm really close to 7. It really is on the precipice. But honestly, most of the problems here just feel like it's simultaneously not doing a lot because it is just an extended fight scene, but also feels really rushed in places where it's like we had the whole Glomulus coming back to life, seemingly betraying them, then sacrificing his life, and then everyone rallying around him, all over the course of 4 pages total. So, yeah, it has its issues, but it's still a decent book. Aquaman, number 11, written by Geoff Johns, art by Ivan Reis. Last issue left off with Black Manta getting, I think, 2, maybe 3 of the relic things, and then teleporting into Mera and Dr. Shin. This issue picks up 6 years ago, flashback to them getting the relic things. And they apparently were originally located in the first king of Atlantis' tomb. And nobody even remembers his name, but they call him the Dead King. And everyone's like, oh, wow, okay, so you're here for your heritage? And Aquaman's like, no, Black Manta's after these things. They're bait. And they're like, you care so little about this? And he's like, let me tell you a story. When it came to the Dead King, he had the ability to escape, and he had like the power to do so when Atlantis came crashing down. But instead, he went to the city searching for his wife and children. He didn't find them, and he died. So really, how much is this power really worth? But either way, they each get an object, and Aquaman gets the trident. So then we cut back to today, and they, of course, lost Black Manta. He just teleported away. But the prisoner of war guy shows up, and he's like, hey, or no, the operative, sorry. He shows up, and he's like, hey, I know where Black Manta's going. Cut to where Black Manta is, and Mera is currently trying to beat the ever-living crap out of him. And she, of course, has her hydrokinesis and is trying to basically drain the water from his body, to which Black Manta reveals that something in his suit allows that to not happen, because she needs to be in contact with the moisture, I guess. Regardless, he manages to shock her, send her out of her way, and then steal Dr. Shin, teleporting out. So right now we've got a plane ride going on, and Operative recovers. He's got his map out, and he's like, all right, I got this from Black Manta's safe. They were looking through a whole bunch of stuff, but they basically was a map that he thought was going to lead to the 7th Atlantean relic. And they're like, there's not a 7th one. We went to the tomb. We got them all. And it's like, well, Black Manta thinks there's 7. So clearly he's going back there. And then Operative's son, grandson, whoever it is, shows up and is like, wow, you're really Aquaman. And then immediately red alerts start going off, and we see that the final member of the team, because prisoner is already on the plane, the final member shows up, and it's Vostok, who's wearing this golden mask thing. And he lands, and he's like, hey, sorry, I haven't spoken in 2 years. How's it going, everybody? And apparently he's just been living on the moon. Because sure, why not? But anyway, as soon as he gets there, Aquaman immediately is like, hey, yeah, one of our members is dead, and leave the door open, I'm leaving. And they say like, hey, we're part of a team here. We can do this as a team. And it's like, no, Black Manta's after me. I'm putting you all at risk just by you being around me. Like, it's important that I do this on my own. And then we get this whole like backstory on Prisoner and Vostok, because I guess we didn't get that enough before. And Prisoner's like, no, you need to have people. I don't have anyone. I lost everyone. I'm so alone. And then Vostok steps up and he's like, hey, you know the reason that, like, I went to the moon? Like, I didn't have anything in my life. And then I joined your guys' team and we had friends. And then we split up. And then I just was waiting on the moon for you to eventually call me. And he just really wants to be part of a team again. To which Arthur says, like, cool, bye. And then he just leaves. And he jumps off the plane. And, of course, he hits the water and he immediately starts taking off towards the tomb of the Atlantean king. And they're like, well, he can swim faster than we can fly, but we can at least try to keep up with him. But then they're like, no. We shouldn't be going there because here's the thing. There's someone he will listen to. We got to go get Mera. So they're flying out to go get Mera to try to talk some sense into Arthur. Meanwhile, at the tomb, Black Manta's already arrived when Aquaman gets there. And they're looking around. He's got all this search crew and goons looking for the 7th relic. And Dr. Shin is there and he's like, all right, Dr. Shin, tell me how to get the relic. And he's like, I will rather die than try to betray Arthur again. And finally, as soon as he says that, one of the goons steps up and is just like, hey, turns out if you use 2 of them at the same time, it triangulates and shows you where the last one is. So they use 2 of the relics, and everything starts glowing, and they're like, oh, of course, the last relic was underneath the tomb. So Black Manta breaks it open and gets the Scepter of the Dead King, a.k.a. the 7th relic, a.k.a. the thing he can use, it's a weapon that was used to sink Atlantis. It's literally the thing that sank Atlantis, and now Black Manta has it. That's where we leave off. I like it. I really do. That little middle section, though, in terms of like, oh, we have to have this whole thing on why Prisoner and Volstock all feel alone. Like, that sagged. That really did. It wasn't a... It was just them talking and just them... don't get me wrong. Prisoner, like, I got that part of the story, but Vostok just showed up. So this was just his time to shine. And I think it was done very well. Because he hasn't spoken in 2 years, like, and these are his very close friends in his eyes, it was done emotionally. However, because they put it in the middle of this bit of everyone saying the importance of friendship, it just kind of fell a little bit flat. It was just a bit of like, okay, yeah, no, totally. The power of love, guys, the power of love. So it's good. I don't want to say it's not good. It definitely is. It's been keeping up with everything that's been going on so far. But this one definitely did feel like okay, we just need to show that Aquaman still has trouble working in like a team environment, I guess, especially when Black Manta's involved. And to do that, they had to kind of make him a dick. But regardless, it's okay. I would give it a... I'd give it a 7. It's okay. It's good. It's fine. But it's not great. And I think there are great parts to it, but it's just counterbalanced by the parts that are like, okay, and moving on. So 7 for this. And I think there's only one more issue in the arc, so we'll see how that wraps up next time. The Flash number 11, written by Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato, art by Marcus Toe. Last issue we left off with the whole weather wizard, like, mafia family thing. Whatever. This issue doesn't relate. So we open up in Keystone City, which I guess is like the worst of the two towns between Keystone and Central. And guy in a trench coat's trying to check into a hotel. Some other dude bumps into him, knocks off his hat, and we see, oh my god, he's horribly disfigured and he's called a freak. To which point we discover that it's heat wave, heat storm, heat stroke. What the heck is it? Heat wave, that's it. His name's not until like 6 pages later. But anyway, heat wave, and he starts burning down this hotel. So then we go to Barry Allen, who he is supposedly dead because of the boat that disappeared into the Speed Force, and so he's just living out in Keystone City, trying to blend in without drawing attention to himself. And he's all pissed off because his friend Dr. Elias is talking smack about the Flash and saying how bad he was. And so then Barry's like, all right, well, first things first, I need to get a job here in Keystone. So he uses his Speed Force thinking to focus on how to get a job. And then he's knocked out of it by some guy bumping into him on the street. And he's like, cool, I know exactly where to go. And he goes down to this local saloon that is apparently like the hangout place for the rogues. I don't know if he knew that. They don't really make it clear. I don't think he did. So he goes in because he knows there's a help wanted sign. And he walks up to the bartender. He's like, hey, could I be a bartender here? And he's like, yeah, okay. You definitely are way too spunky for this bar. But here, I'll give you a beer. So he gives him a beer. Barry goes bat down for his wallet and realizes that that guy who bumped into him earlier was actually pickpocketing him, so he doesn't have any money to pay it off and offers to work it off instead. Meanwhile, we see a dude hitting on a girl at the bar, and turns out it's Captain Cold, and he gets turned down pretty hard. So let me just get a 2-page spread of not relating to the rest of the book, where it's just Patty being chewed out by director Singh, I believe is his name, for basically doing the whole Weather Wizard arc. And she's like, I don't see what the problem is. I went down on my vacation time, I took care of it on my own, and we closed a case. Like, what's the problem here? And he's like, you could have died, Patty. You're not a detective, you're an analyst. Like, you want to do a detective? Do it the right way, for God's sakes. And he offhandedly mentions how we need you because Barry's gone. And she, of course, doesn't take that very well because Barry's gone. So she walks out in a huff, and we see that the director is also all messed up because there's arson all over the city, and a paper says that the Pied Piper is back, who is his boyfriend, like, clearly. So then we get an interview with Dr. Elias on some morning news show, and basically he's sitting there like, yeah, you know what? Vigilantes, superheroes, overrated. Me, I'm the real deal. I cured the energy crisis, and I did it all on my own. I didn't have any help from any Flash. Definitely not him. So keep an eye out on me, because I'm gonna change the world. And then we see a TV in the bar is playing this interview, and it's immediately smashed by Captain Cold, who throws a beer pitcher at it. And he's like, man, this sucks. I can't even drink my drinks because every time I do, these now natural cold powers freeze them before I can. To which Barry chimes up and says, hey, bartender, can you mix together this crazy concoction? And he does, and it passes like a fruity little drink over to Captain Cold. And he's like, what in the hell is this? And he's like, it's mixed in a way that it's not going to freeze. Like, it's impervious to freezing. So they introduce each other. He's like, hi, I'm Len Snart, what's your name? And he's like, you can call me Al. And then as soon as he introduced himself, Heatwave busts in saying like, hey, Snart, me and you, we got problems. And Barry tries to get in the way and be like, hey, I sort of kind of work at this bar, so maybe let's not fight. And he's like, this bar belongs to the rogues. I'm a rogue. Who are you? And he's like, all right, bye. Throws him outside the window. He immediately transforms into Flash, runs back in, try to stop the fighting between the two of them. And he basically just gets in the way of the pair of them as the rest of the people run out. And basically Heatwave is pissed off because Heatwave also has natural powers now, the same way that Snart does and the same way the Weather Wizard does. And he's pissed off because he literally cannot live anymore. And Flash correctly puts together like, hey, those arsons in town, was that you, Heatwave? And Heatwave's like, genuinely? I'm barely even trying to do that. Like, it's just a temper thing. So they're getting into a fight, and Flash tries to calm it down by causing one of those like cyclones that sucks out all the air and knocks them both out. So Iron Heights police show up. They arrest the pair of them, and it's just like, well, I think I'm doing an okay job as Flash, despite the fact nobody else thinks so. And who knows, maybe Al can have a long-lived career here. So we see Heatwave and Captain Cold in the back of the police car, and it's just like, all right, yeah, you say you got a problem with me, and I'm sure we'll sort it out in prison. We'll see what's up. And as soon as he says that, Golden Glider, a.k.a. Lisa Snart, a.k.a. Captain Cold's sister, phases through the bottom of the truck saying like, maybe you won't see it that far. And she is supposedly breaking them out, but we leave on that. Okay, sure. Again, I know that it's a pun, and I think I said this last time, is that this feels like it's moving at such a breakneck pace. Like, I'm okay with them rushing to introduce the rogues. I understand that the Weather Wizard thing was its own thing, like somewhere else, and he'll probably just arrive here later. But it just feels like we've introduced so much between the issues. Like, there's this one, not so much as between the last two, but this issue's just like, yep, I'm in this town, I faked my death, and now I'm just going to be living a new life. Like, that seems like major decisions to be made, but he's just like, yeah, no, that just happened when you weren't looking. So my only complaint is that. Everything else I'm good with. I think it's a good idea here to set up this sort of weird thing where they have powers now, because historically before the New 52 they didn't. And I like that. I like the fact that this isn't a thing where they're like, yes, untold power at my fingertips. They're like, no, this sucks. I can't live a basic life anymore. Powers suck. So it's an interesting take on it. I'm interested to see where it goes. So overall, I'm going to give this issue I give it a 7.5. I do really enjoy it, all things considered. I do think that this Pied Piper thing they've been setting up for like 5 issues now either needs to get it over with or drop it, because it's not, for me personally, it's not as big of a reveal as it seems to be. So whenever we get to that, let's just hurry up with it already. The Fury of Firestorm, number 11, written by Joe Harris, art by Yildiray Cinar. Last issue left off with a bunch of rogue Firestorms attacking, and apparently Posar made them, and Ronnie's pissed off about it. This issue picks up with Director Zither looking at all of the destruction that the Firestorm protocols have caused, and basically just talking through it with her secretary, just being like, hey, so our entire business is kind of going under. Like, we're getting subpoenaed by a bunch of federal agencies and such because of us selling these basically nuclear warheads to other countries. But she's like, darn that Professor Stein. He made these things, but he was a fool in how he distributed it. We could have done this safely. We made all these great firestorms. And then the secretary's like, well, you didn't make Jason and Ronnie, did you? And they're like, no, we did not. Thank you, Secretary. So cut over to I forget her name, the Indian Firestorm, Posar, and Ronnie. And they're seeing some rogue firestorms coming over the hills. And basically, it's just an extended fight scene between them and the firestorms of Ashra Khan, which I think are just some sort of terrorist cell. So, cut back over to Firehawk and Jason, who are in the Siberian taiga, and they're investigating a firestorm facility that seemingly was belonging to Posar. And Firehawk's able to use some level of something in order to like piece together what this place looked like when it was being used. Like, she's got a whole display with her powers. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but Jason's not as interested because he looks off to the side and sees that there's some leftover alpha particles nearby, which he's able to interact with. More on that in a second. We get another fight scene between the Rogue Firestorms and all the other rest of the team. And sorry, her name was Rakshasi. I'm not going to be able to say that again. But Ronnie is seeing just how much destruction they're causing in the middle of their fight. So he tries to zoom away from the city, and he pulls several of the Rogue Firestorms with him. And Posar's like, maybe in a different life you would have made a good leader, kid. And Rakshasi is like, hey, he doesn't have the power to transmute things. Maybe we should go help. And Posar's, for some reason, really pissed off by this. He's like, you have no idea the power he possesses. And blasts Rakshasi for some reason. Then we got back to Jason, who, it turns out those alpha particles weren't just random particles. They were like the spirit or something of Professor Stein, who basically tells him, like, look, you and Ronnie are linked together. Like, you need each other in order to make this work. He's off following his own thing, but, like, you need to be there for him and get him back on track. So, and Firehawk's looking over, and he's just seeing Jason basically standing there like, what are you doing, dude? But anyway, Professor Stein says, here's the deal. If Ronnie gets compromised, if he goes too far down that path, like, everything goes wrong, because if you expose someone to the Firestorm protocols once, they get cool powers. But if you expose them a second time, something terrible will happen. And so, in doing so, the alpha particles somehow give Jason another copy of the Firestorm protocols to use in some manner. They don't specifically say how. So then we cut back to the fight again, and Ronnie's still out running the rogue ones, but only just barely, and they're starting to lay some hands on him, and he's like, ugh, I can't keep running. I have to fight back. And so he unleashes his power, which just rips all of the firestorms like atom from atom. Like, they're just gone. And Posar shows up as he's in a weakened state, and it's just like, ah, yes, good job. You have so much power, so much potential. It's a shame to see it all wasted. Going back to Jason, who immediately just takes off as soon as he gets this Firestorm protocol, and Firehawk has to literally like teleport in front of him, more or less. It's just like, where are you going? You didn't even say anything. It's just like, look, Ronnie's in trouble. I can't explain it. I got to go in there and save him. And Firehawk basically breaks down like, no, you are a representative to your country. Like, you can't just fly into this random country and start fighting. There are international rules here. We can go, we can get like your friends, we can get like diplomacy here. We can do a whole bunch of, call them the Justice League, but we can do something here besides you causing another international incident. And during this fight, he just kind of like phases out of existence and just flies away again. And Firehawk's like, all right, well, bye. I don't think he's coming back. So anyway, again, Posar's standing over top of Jason, just like, oh, I see you're struggling with all this power. I can't believe you're so unwilling to use it. And Rakshasi's like, no, don't trust him, Ronnie. To which Posar then grabs Ronnie and fuses with him, not with a kiss, just by like squeezing him, I guess. And we get our new Firestorm mashup, Scorn. Cool. I can't even remember what the Firehawk one was anymore, but this one's Scorn. And honest to God, it is a decent character design. It's got like devil horns going on. I do like the design of it. I lost the plot. I feel like they were doing this thing where it's like, what are Posar's true intentions? What does he really want for everyone? But like, maybe I just lost it. Maybe it was too circuitous and too like deep under the surface. But really, that entire side of things, I have no idea what's going on, of whether or not, as a reader, the writer thinks that I do trust Posar, don't trust Posar, like whether Ronnie trusts him or not. Like we had that whole thing where Ronnie came in at the end of last issue saying, "What do you know? I'm ready to fight you, Posar." And then this issue was just like, thanks for telling me the truth, I guess. Like, what are we... genuinely, that side of the plot is completely lost to me. I have no idea what's going on with it anymore. Maybe that's on me as a reader, but I feel like I've been at least paying decent attention here. So, yeah, overall, this issue's fine. It's not anything awful. It's just kind of, I don't know, when you've lost the plot and then this issue is just forwarding the plot, I'm just kind of like, okay, whatever. Like, it seems like we're finally coming to the point where we're going to be merging these two things together because Jason is on a direct course to Ronnie. So we're done with it. We will be soon done with it. But until that happens, I don't know what I'm even supposed to be caring about right now. Are we doing a morality thing? I know this all sprung up from when the Rogue Firestorm exploded at the concert. But then after that, I lost it. So please, let me know what I'm missing here. Overall, I got to give this one like a 6. I can't even do 0.5. I was debating on that. I'm giving just a 6 just because it's just gotten too weird for its own sake. I don't know what they've introduced, this whole thing of like, oh, the Firestorms are meant to defend the nations, but then once they actually are defending the nations, their Zither tech is called up on. I don't know. It's too much. It's just too much. The Savage Hawkman, number 11, written by Rob Liefeld and Mark Poulton, art by Joe Bennett. Last issue, there was a guy named Pike who's hunting Hawkman now, and that's the only thing that's relevant because this issue is quite literally the definition of filler. So we open in Rome, and Carter and Emma are making their way down the streets to go talk to a priest who's apparently an expert in ancient religious texts or something, and they're going to go show him this scroll that has some old hieroglyphics that Carter can't make out. And they arrive and they see, winged figures and whatnot as angels, and that's the whole reason they're going to see the priest. And the priest is basically telling them like, yes, they speak of celestial beings, of the gods, the Nephilims or whatever. It's like, where did you even get this stuff? And he's like, here's the deal. I got this stuff, and I think it's talking about aliens. I think that if we decipher it, we can figure out where these celestial beings from the Bible are actually from. And they're immediately, the dude just goes off on like, that's heresy, that's blasphemy, screw you, we're going to kill you. And then this dude pops in full like Crusades armor named Saint Bastion. And this entire issue is just a fight scene between Saint Bastion and Hawkman and the priest and Emma. That's it. And like literally it's just all the internal monologue of like, oh, these religious zealots are insane. They're willing to kill for their cause and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's just 20 pages of that. I literally have nothing more to add. She tries to grab the scroll and run out of the building. The priest stops her, so she kicks him in the face, tries running out some more. The priest stops her again. They're about to, I think, burn the scroll after like 4 more pages here. Emma stops him, starts running out again. At that point, Hawkman has St. Bastion. After a long fight scene of literally nothing, St. Bastion is on the ground, and Hawkman, the entire place is starting to burn, and Hawkman's like, I don't have to save you. You can save yourself if you so choose. And he grabs Emma, and they just fly out. And then they just make their way to a nearby rooftop, like far enough away from the fire that nobody's wondering why Hawkman burned down this building. And then as soon as they get there, they're like, wow, okay. So apparently people don't like me having these scrolls. Got it. And then Hawkman gets shot. And then remember how I said last issue there's a guy named Pike hunting them? Well, it's Pike. He shows up and he's like, ha ha, Hawkman, you're going to die in a few seconds. So let me tell you, my name is Pike, and I'm happy to have killed you. And then Hawkman's like, it's a good thing I have nth metal, because I'm not dead yet. And then that's the issue. Nothing of consequence happened. Nothing at all. Like, what? I don't even... What? Because I'm not kidding here in terms of the just immediacy of this guy, where it's, let's see here. Angels is extraterrestrials. What you speak of is blasphemy. He's concerned at this point, but he is still, listening and trying to help. Because this guy was vouched for by Emma and her father. So, there's a thing here. But then he says, Jacob, Gideon, the shepherds, and the Angelicos, if anything, this enhances your core beliefs. To which he immediately screams out, heretic, blasphemer, enter protector, and smite the wicked with your wrath. To which then St. Bastian pops in. This was 0 to a billion in 0.5 panels. I genuinely can't, I feel like they wanted to have a fight scene and they had the drawings of this character and they're like, we got to get him to a church and we got to get him to piss off somebody who has religious power. But then they didn't actually think, how do we get there in a reasonable amount of time? So whatever. 5. Honestly, nah, I got to go lower. I'm giving it a 4. Nothing happened. It was just a whole bunch of internal, all of it here. Religious zealots haven't tangled with one of these in ages. I understand his anger. I basically told him his spiritual guide. Just constantly going on and on about, aha, this is why we're fighting. But, why are you even fighting at any point here? So, no, 4. God help me. All-Star Western number 11, written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Moritat. Last issue left off with Dr. Arkham discovering the existence of a Talon in Gotham, I guess. He seemed rather spooked because 2 people just died right in front of him. And basically the first 2 pages of this are just him recounting, here's what we know about the Court of Owls. There's a Talon that I definitely saw, and that lady in New Orleans definitely looked pretty owl-like. And also, there's this nursery rhyme, Beware the Court of Owls. So, my speculation here is that we know there's a Court of Owls, and we know that there is a religion of crime, and they're both secret societies, and I highly doubt that one of them is going to be able to coexist with the other. So they're going to fight each other. And more or less that's what we get. So at Cobblepot Pass, we get, what's his name? Lucius Bennett, the guy that Tallulah Black is currently hunting down, is being transported in carriage. And immediately they're stopped by Jonah Hex and Tallulah. And they get into a fight with his bodyguard guy named Baroque. And he starts firing, they all start fighting each other. And Jonah gets off a good hit on Baroque, which knocks him off the horse. Bennett starts getting away, has a few other just normal bodyguards helping him out. But before Tallulah and Jonah can get to Bennett, the Talon shows up. And Bennett's like, dude, Court of Owls, if you do this, you're going to be starting a war. I hope you understand that. And the Talon sees the Jonah Hex and Tallulah are nearby, throws down a smoke grenade and makes an escape. And makes their way underneath the bridge that they're on, to which the Talon has Bennett strung up, and he's just like, why did you save me from them? And he's like, I didn't. And then just snaps his neck and lets him fall off the bridge. So then we go to the followers of the crime Bible, and we see all the different lords, terror, extortion, thieves, assassins, and prostitution. And they're basically just talking about how do we deal with the whole Jonah Hex and Tallulah Black problem, because they killed off one of the lords, and they're like, all right, here's the deal. We got to come at as a united front, so we're going to capture them, and then we're going to kill them all together. Sound good? Great. So they have the police arrest Amadeus, Jonah, and Tallulah. And of course they put up a little bit of a fight, but not too much. And once they're put in bags over their heads and taken to a secret location, and they start working through like, okay, so what's actually probably going on here? And they realize that there was the Court of Owls lady, the Talon, and they realized that Bennett was definitely a member of the Religion of Crime because he had that ring on his finger. So they realize, all right, so now they're probably just like sending a message because they think that we killed them, but there's a whole like crime war thing going on. So they get to this location. It looks to just be an overgrown manor, and they use some like chloroform or something to knock them out and tie them next to this giant machine that's going to basically build up steam pressure until when they awaken, and then they're just going to torture them. Not to get any real information, but just to torture them slowly. But it's going to take some time for the water to boil to a proper temperature. So while they're waiting, Tallulah, behind everyone's backs, wakes up, manages to free herself, and gets away somehow. And by the time that the Religion of Crime lords come down into this area where they are, they look around and they're like, oh geez, Tallulah got free. Someone find her. And that's where the issue leaves off. I will say there is one little conversation they have here talking about how they are going to be corrupting the current mayor, who is Mayor Cobblepot. And then someone chimes up being like, actually, no, he's pretty evil already. Like, it will not be that hard to get him to do bad things because he's definitely a dick. So, yeah, that's the issue. It's fine. It's good. It definitely feels more of setup to this war between the Court of Owls and the Crime Bible people. It's weird to me that this is what's continuing the Court of Owls. Like, I think I said that last time, I was surprised that they kept on making appearances here of all places. But, hey, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. I'm interested to see what little bits of lore they can manage to establish. Because this would be early years. This would be the Court of Owls just getting, like, they're literally defining their place as the secret society in Gotham. So I am interested in that. Writing-wise, I glossed over a lot of it, but it is well written. There's a lot of parts where Tallulah's narrating and giving her just mental process of, like, how she feels about Jonah and what her relationship with him, like, really boils down to, whether it's trust or respect or just lust. It's interesting to see the mindset on that. Favorite page is probably when the Talon drops Lucius Bennett off the bridge, snaps his neck, just because it's just the whole, like, why'd you save me? I didn't snap. So, no, it's a good read. It's a fine read overall. It's not blowing me away, but it's a good read. So I'll give it a 7. I think it's very well done, but not really much more to say about it. It's just it's a good read throughout, but it's never the best read at any given point. So, yeah. Voodoo number 11, written by Joshua Williamson, art by Sami. Basri. Last issue we left off with Voodoo about to get into a big fight with some giant centurion statues, and the rest of the human crew just crash landed on the planet as well. This issue picks up with Voodoo still just dodging all of the blows from the Centurions, and she's doing a good job at it, and everyone's cheering her on, but they're like, you do know that to get by them, you do have to defeat them, right? So she's like, oh, yeah, right. All right, I have to beat them. Here I go. And as she's about to, like, do anything, she suddenly gets that, like, psychic link with Priscilla. She's like, oh, crap, Priscilla's here? No, that can't happen already. To which she's caught off guard, and the Centurion starts gripping her, squeezing her in its hand. Cut over to the entire crew. All of the Black Razors are fighting off the hordes of Daemonites. The weird evolution Daemonites, while Priscilla's out cold. But she does, as soon as she makes this psychic link with Voodoo, she does wake up, like, just a little bit, just a tiny bit of, like, oh gosh, what's happening here? So then it's established that there are 3 folds that need to happen. 1, they need to go get Voodoo and take care of that. 2, the ship, when it crashed, damaged the control panel. So they need to go to another ship on this planet and get a new control panel. And 3, they need to not die by these hordes of enemies. So immediately, Priscilla kicks into action. She's up and awake and she's ready to go. And they're like, all right, Priscilla, what do you want to do? And she immediately just sprouts some wings, flies off, and says, I'm taking on Voodoo alone. To which Lincoln tells Walker, hey, go after her. Just keep an eye on her. Lincoln and, I forget, Skivarla, I believe her name is, are both going to go after the parts for the ship, while Magnus and Flynn are going to fight off the hordes. So everyone's got their thing. And then we cut back to Voodoo, who's being crushed under the shoe of the Centurion. And now she's being laughed at by everyone, just being like, you put up a good fight, good job, all right, let's see you die now. And as she looks back at the crowd standing way far away from the whole fight scene, she's like, there is an easier way to get past these guys. Get their attention off of me. So she just starts sprinting her way towards the rest of the crowd, and all the Damon Hats are like, wait a minute, hold on, what's she doing? And then the Centurions just start tearing apart all of them. And she uses some camouflage to sneak into the cave. Cut back to Lincoln and Skivarla, who are in the ship. They get their hands on one of the control panels. They're like, all right, cool. Let's get back to the ship and I can put it back together. And they start sprinting back there, and Flynn and Magnus are just like, yeah, no, we're doing fine. We're kicking some alien ass. Everything's totally great. And then they're snuck up from behind, and they are literally torn in half. Like, you can see Magnus's spinal column coming out of his helmet. It is very gruesome. So Lincoln's like, okay, well, guess we got to rely on Priscilla now. So then we see what Priscilla's up to. She's making her way over towards where the cave was. And when they get there, they see the Centurions have just finished killing the rest of the Damonites. And the only one that survived was the leader guy, who comes up behind the pair of them and is like, hey, you had them attack us. We're totally going to kill you now. And he's like, wait a minute. You're not Voodoo. You smell like her. Who are you? Why do you look the same? Did you come from Hellspawn? And she's like, no, we didn't come. Walker jumps in. Actually, yes, we did come from Hellspawn. And then he quotes Ghostbusters of if someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes. To which Priscilla doesn't get the reference. But basically, they ask, like, yes, we were sent here by Hellspawn to assist Voodoo. Can you point us where she went? And he's like, yeah, she went to that cave over there. You could probably just get in there, no problem. So we follow in Voodoo into the cave, and she's making her way down. She sees a whole bunch of statues of Damonites, and then finally, as she gets to the end, she sees this very large statue holding what appears to be a sword that's giving off a blue electrical flame thing. And as she goes to touch it, it like shocks her, and she's like, oh my god, there's so much power here. Like, this could kill literally all the metahumans. This is what Hellspawn wants, to destroy all them. And before she can get her hands on it, Priscilla steps in the cave and says, oh, don't get too excited, bitch. That's an exact quote, by the way. And then it's like, all right, this ends here. No more running. Bring it. So, next issue, fight scene. I like it. I really do. I think I like how they were teasing that thing of like Priscilla and Voodoo look identical, and they were going to have to like fight this big guy in order to get past. But he's like, wait a minute, no, you're not her. All right, move on. Like, I don't know. That character was introduced last issue, and he's done more to endear me than like any of the Black Razors did at all. So I'm down for it. I really do enjoy it. Mind you, I can't remember his name. I think it's like Molestone or something. As for the Black Razors, like I said, didn't really endear me, but by God were those deaths gruesome. They were something else. I can't really point out specifically what I do like about this issue. The art is fantastic. Sami Basri does a great job in all of this here. Like, I genuinely don't have any complaints about it. It's just an overall good time. It's just a fun, like, it's just a spacefaring. The only problem I have with it really is Hellspawn being involved. But honestly, he's just kind of this background noise. He's not a focus. So, yeah, no, I'm just enjoying Voodoo in general. It's a shame. I think this ends in 2 issues. We're going to get 12 and a 0 issue. So I hope we can stick the landing. I hope it leaves it open to at least something interesting. But we will see when that comes. For now, this issue gets itself I give it a 7.5. I really, really do enjoy this. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the next issue. Teen Titans number 11, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Brett Booth. Last issue left off with a whole Dinosaur Island thing. It doesn't need to be recounted. It doesn't matter to this at all. So this is a Wonder Girl story. And we open up with Wonder Girl, Cassie, in pain, lying on the bathroom floor with like spikes and her armor starting to like jet out of her all over her body. And she's like, oh, this sucks so much. And then we see Kid Flash, Bunker, and Solstice in a fight with a big blue Hulk guy, like just on the other side of the bathroom door. And at a certain point during the fight, it flings something through the door, startles Cassie, and so now she's involved in the fight, and everyone's like, we didn't even know she was here. Cool, awesome, she'll knock him out, no problem. So the guy's name is Loose Cannon, and he has these like lashes that lash onto people and make him more powerful. And as soon as Cassie realizes this, she kind of like lets out some demonic energy or something like that, which immediately knocks out Loose Cannon. She's like, oh, did I black out again? What did I do? And then we have her fly back to the rest of the Titans being like, hey, what did you guys, what was that? What just happened? And then apparently all of this was Bunker, his fault, Miguel. He was just like, here was the deal. Robin was talking about leaving. That one you guys didn't know about, but Robin was talking about leaving Teen Titans, so I was holding an interview, found this guy on Craigslist, and Kid Flash is like, you found this guy on Craigslist? He's like, I found him on Craigslist, verified that he had some cool powers and such, so I blindfolded him. I didn't let him know where we were at all, brought him here, let him have a tour of the place, and then apparently it turns out the whole time he was a supervillain, so he tried to kill us. And then that's it, like, whatever. Okay, that happened. Now clean this mess up. So then we cut to the Museum of Natural History, where there's a guy who looks a hell of a lot like Superboy, is clearly not though, just meditating naked in the middle of the museum. And he's like, there she is. Every time she uses her powers, I can track her down a little more, and now I have finally found her. That's going to come up later, I guess. So then we see that Miguel and Kid Flash are just chilling, watching TV, whatever, because Kid Flash knows he can clean all this up in like no time at all, right before Red Robin arrives. And then we see, for, again, no discernible reason, Superboy. He's off at his own penthouse, which was covered in Superboy, I believe. And the girl that he's living in the penthouse with is like hitting on him, and he's like, sorry, don't really have an interest. Also, the tower that my friends are in just had a blackout, so I gotta go. And then we see the blackout affecting them. Kid Flash runs down into the breaker room, is immediately punched in the head, and was like, uh-oh, I'm about to pass out from that hit. I better run back up to the room before I do. And so he does, and then passes out, which I don't think that's how that works, but it's at least an interesting use of speed. So Bunker sees Kid Flash pass out, and he's like, oh, all right, better set up a barrier. So he sets up this huge pile of his psionic bricks to block the door, which is immediately broken through, knocking him out. And then finally Solstice is like, wait a minute, Wonder Girl, is that you? And we don't see Wonder Girl, but she's like, yes, it's me, but it's complicated. Also, forgot to mention, previous page, Solstice just revealed that her and Kid Flash kind of have a thing now, since they made out on the beach last issue. Okay, yeah, sure. Anyway, we see that the dude who was in the museum is just making his way downtown in a cab for 2 panels, and then we just cut back to the fight. So Solstice is fighting Wonder Girl, and he's like, I don't want to hurt you, but if I have to, I will, to stop you, even if that means killing you. And she's like, you can't kill me, I'm Wonder Girl. And it's like, you make the mistake of thinking I'm weak because I'm nice, but I'm not. So then we cut to Robin, who's just flying over the city, thinking about how he's failing the Titans because he's the one who brought them together and blah, blah, blah. And then Superboy joins them. They arrive at the Teen Titans Tower and or I say the Titans Tower, it's the penthouse. And then, it's all the wreckage and whatnot. And in the middle is just this hunk of armor wearing like a golden mask that has Cassie inside of it. And she says, please help me before I kill again. To which Robin's like, again? And that's the end of the issue. So this one felt like two issues just kind of rammed into one. Like the part where the guy was meditating and like there she is felt like the end of issue cliffhanger where it's like tune in next time to see what this guy's up to. But instead we just kept going. And as such, like, we didn't do, like, what did we do here? If we're being honest. Because we just set up a whole thing of Cassie. Yes, she's always said that she has issues with this armor, but we're setting up this whole thing of her not being able to control it now, which I don't think was ever a thing, and that it, like, literally punctures through her skin. And then we went on this whole thing with loose cannon and Miguel bringing a guy in, which is just completely thrown away. I don't even know why we did that one. That had nothing to do with anything. Genuinely, this felt like 2 or 3 different issues just kind of like mashed into one because none of them were their own stories. And mind you, no, sorry, we only did spend 1 issue on Dinosaur Island, but it was spread across 2 books. Never mind, I was about to say we spent 2 issues on that Dinosaur Island. So, yeah, no, it's not good. Then again, I have never accused this book of being good, so no points lost there. Points lost in every other category, though. I got to put this at like a... I got to put it at like a 4. And honestly, I like that they're doing a Wonder Girl thing because we spent so long on Superboy and we had a whole big thing with like Kid Flash. I feel like Solstice could use some work still, but I'm happy to learn more about Wonder Girl, and they have done little bits of setup on saying like she has some sort of past. I'm okay with the story concept, but the execution so far is just like, do you want to tell the story or not? Because it seems like you're just trying to get it out of the way as fast as possible. So 4 for this. Art also not good, but that goes without saying. I, Vampire number 11, written by Joshua Hale Fialkov, art by Andrea Sorrentino. Last issue left off with the vampire horde being attacked by zombie vampire hunters. I love this book. We make it clear through a introduction here of how Andrew is actually those little amulet things are Egyptian in nature, so they're not really zombies, they're more mummies. But regardless, the fight is the same. So Andrew makes the call to all the people in the vampire community, like, kill them all. They got to go down eventually. So they also make the point of, okay, you rip off the necklace, they lose their magic, and then they can go down very easily. So that's the goal, is to rip off all the necklaces. And Mary goes around and starts trying to kill a bunch of them by taking off the necklaces. But some of the vampires ain't so bright, and they start trying to bite the zombies, which, because of their magical powers and whatnot, make it so that the vampires themselves get infected with the kill vampires thing and become zombies themselves. So if they bite them, they will become enemies to the rest of the vampires. It's confusing. Anyway, overhead, Tig and John are going down the airplane still. Tig manages to have a razor blade. She cuts through her ropes and then makes her way up to the cabin of the plane. She's like, well, no better time than now to learn how to fly a plane, as she sees it careening into the side of a giant mountain. And then down on the ground, we see the leader of the Van Helsings is meeting up with Andrew, just being like, I look slightly more forward to your death than I do mine, but both are going to be satisfying here. And Andrew's like, dude, all I wanted you to do was your job. That was the whole reason I had them get you, is that we're supposed to be in an eternal stalemate. Neither of us is ever supposed to actually get the upper hand, you idiot. Cut back onto the plane. And John's like, Tig, goddammit, come here and untie me. She's like, I'm flying the plane. And he's like, untie me. She's like, fine. Presses the autopilot button, comes back and unties him. He's like, why aren't you flying the plane? He's like, make up your mind, man. It's the autopilot. It's fine. And John's like, I don't think the autopilot works that way. As the plane comes slowly into what you could consider to be a landing, but in reality is just crashing into the ground. Everyone on board is fine, and they're like, all right, cool, I guess we made it out. But then they hear this beeping noise, and Tig looks in the back cargo hold and sees just huge troves of dynamite there set on a timer. And she's like, all right, time to run. And they run as fast as they can, but the plane explodes. And Andrew looks at Van Helsing like, what the hell was that? He's like, oh, I just blew up your 2 friends. And he's like, well, I'm sorry, what'd you say? I blew up your 2 friends. And then Andrew just rips off Van Helsing's arm and be like, Cool, so here's what we're going to do now. I'm going to keep ripping pieces off of your body, and we're going to see how far I can go until you turn into a zombie. And Mary's just looking on like, this is beautiful. I love this. So the fight continues, and it looks like there are heavy losses on both sides, honestly. Like, everyone's dying. But we see the few vampires that have been infected are now moaning reinforcements. And I'll get back to that. But anyway, Andrew's torn off all the limbs off of Van Helsing. He's like, there's nothing you can do to me anymore, vampire. And he's like, no, I can do plenty. And he uses his magical powers to reassemble Van Helsing just to rip all of his pieces off again. And Van Helsing's like, oh, it doesn't matter. My focus is clear. My purpose is known. Nothing you can do can change that. And as Andrew's about to kill him, John and Tig step out of the wreckage and they're like, hey, I can't let you do this. Like, Andrew, you're better than that. And he's like, no, this is what I've always been. I've had to hide the real me. He's like, I get that, but I still can't let you do it. And John beheads the Van Helsing with a sword. And they start talking, just catching up a little, just being like, oh man, that was crazy. And then the body gets back up again, and Tig finally chops through the middle of it. And she's like, am I good to kill that guy? He's not going to unleash any sort of undead whatevers. So then Mary finally comes down. She's like, oh, cool, everyone's alive. Van Helsing losers can't seem to do anything right. And she explains the situation going on with the undead vampire hunters, to which that's literally what Andrew calls them. And just like, yeah, okay. Okay, so here's the deal. We're going to have to kill them all. And Mary's like, that's what we're doing? She's like, yep, get on board or get your head cut off. And he's like, all right, well, fine. So Andrew lays down some cover by unleashing a magic spell, basically freezing everybody in place. And so the four of them just start making their way through the crowd, slowly killing all of them one by one. And over the course of the bottom of these pages, there are panels of the zombie that was saying reinforcements. He lumbers out until he gets to a pickup truck. He rips the door off of it, pulls out the current drivers, hops in the pickup truck, drives to the nearest town, and just starts infecting everybody in town. So now there's an entire city full of zombie, vampire hunters. I love this book so much. I cannot even begin to describe. First off, art the whole way through for the past 11 issues, Andrea Sorrentino has knocked this out of the park. Like 200%. Continues in this issue, even down to the layouts are just fun. And then it's just, like, it's so fun of a book. Like, the characters feel serious while doing just fun things. Like, there are zombie vampire hunters, and yet I am so into it. 100%. I can't even begin to describe it. Oh, God. It makes me so angry that I think there's only one more issue of this. Next issue is the last issue. And it looks like it's a crossover with Stormwatch, which kind of disappoints me. But, God, this book has been so much fun. I'm going to be so sad to see it go. Yeah, this issue, I gotta give it a 9. Honestly, if you have not checked out iVampire, please forget everything I've said over the past 11 months. Go get the 2 trades and just read them. They are fantastic and are well worth it. I love every second of this book, and I will continue to do so, hopefully, in the final issue next month. Justice League Dark number 11, written by Geoff Lemire, art by Mikel Janin. Last issue we left off with Faust summoning some demons to attack Steve Trevor in an Argus facility. And this issue basically just picks up right there where Steve is being attacked by the demons, and he starts calling in all the security things while Faust starts getting powered up, because apparently this whole time it was all just a ruse, that he was ever under any sort of duress from them. So these 2 giant golem things show up, and Faust is like, are you kidding me? Golems? Like, that is bottom of the barrel magic. And he's like, yeah, well, they're not really here to defend me. They're here to stall you until the Justice League Dark show up, to which they do right on time. And so fight breaks out between the crew and Faust, and they're all trying to fight off the demons. Deadman swoops in and possesses Steve Trevor in order to backflip him out of the middle of the fight. and get him separated. And then Dr. Mist unleashes a big old magical barrage in order to blow back everybody so that they can regroup. And Constantine just straight up tells Steve Trevor, here's the deal. In order to save the day, I need to get into the Black Room. And Steve is like, no deal. And then demons are getting closer. And he's like, no, seriously though? Like, we do not have time to talk about this, so I need to get in there. And she's like, all right, fine, but I'm only letting you in there with Black Orchid watching your every move. And he's like, fine, whatever. Sounds fine. Let's go. So they start running their way down to the Black Room while Steve Trevor's calling in all the big guns that they possibly can. Meanwhile, Xanadu, she's still thinking about that future vision that she had of Constantine having all the books and then killing everybody with it. And she's like, all right, here's the deal. In a story that we did not cover, and I'm saying that from Xanadu's perspective because like it did not happen in continuity as of this point, Constantine, Xanadu, and Zatanna all met up with a kid named Timothy Hunter, who was to be the greatest mage the world had ever known. But after they showed him the deep, dark side of the Justice League Dark and all the magic that came with it, he really didn't want to do it anymore. So they just let him go, and they promised not to bother him anymore. But now the books of magic are in play, they need to go and find him again. So Xanadu teleports to, it looks like somewhere in London. And basically Joe's and knocks on his front door. He answers like, Xanadu, what are you doing? You promised you wouldn't come here again. My dad's upstairs. And she's like, yeah, no, you need to come with me. We're in grave danger. And he's like, no, it's over. I'm not doing that anymore. He's like, no, you don't understand. The books of magic are in play. You need to come with me, Timothy. So he's like, no, Xanadu, you don't understand. I gave away all of my magic. I don't have it anymore. I am not the person you think I am. So yeah, that's the thing. So anyway, Constantine meets up with a guy named, what's her name here? John Peril, who is the expert in paranormal investigation and occult terror prevention. Because why not? So they've got a whole SWAT team with anti-magic guns or whatever lined up, and they're standing outside the Black Room. Dr. Mist lets down his magic barrier in order to let Constantine in. And they go about looking for whatever they need to beat Faust. And in the end, they have Deadman and Zatanna trying to hold him back. Deadman is unable to do anything. So Faust literally sends him to the land of the dead. And he's like, don't worry, I'm sure he'll show back up later. But he's out of my hair for right now. But then as soon as he does, Constantine's like, hey, got everything I need. And it looks like a bunch of stuff, but really the only thing he's using is the Staff of Merlin, which apparently still has some juice in it. And it's able to use some very powerful magic to send the demons away. So Constantine tells Trevor to take care of Zatanna and tells Dr. Mist to go watch the Black Room to make sure that there's no traps that are being set in that direction, whereas Constantine's going to take on Felix dead on. And it turns out that Constantine did take one more item from the Black Room that he didn't let on before, and Felix knows he has it. It's the only thing that can actually open up the box that holds the locations, and it's a skeleton key, which has been carved from the bones of St. Peter, and it's supposedly able to open anything, and John just has it in his hands. But he is unwilling to give it up to Faust, so they have a little brief fight, and Faust ends up burning the Staff of Merlin out of Constantine's hand and reveals a tattoo on his wrist that really freaks Faust out. He's like, wait, hold on. You got that tattoo. Are you with him? Are you working with him? And Constantine's like, I have actually no idea what you're talking about here, but I'm going to take your bedazzlement to beat you. And so he uses a sword that he stole, knocks the box out of Faust's hands, and then uses the skeleton key to open it. And so he has the location of the books of magic. He sees where they are. It's a weird hologram thing, so I'm not actually sure if Felix is also able to see it, but regardless, he knows where they are. And then Felix starts chuckling to himself. He's like, you fool, you absolute imbecile. You think you were so focused on my quest in the books of magic and all that, you never asked the most basic questions, like, how did I even know to come here? How did I know that stuff was there to begin with? And he's like, oh, crap. Are you saying that I was betrayed? And then Dr. Mist shows up and zaps Constantine saying, yep, you've been betrayed. And that's where it ends. I'm down. I like it. It's a solid thing. So when they did the Timothy Hunter thing, I had to stop reading and then go on like a 15-minute Google searching quest of making sure I didn't miss something. And no, it basically is just a thing of, this was in prior continuity, and we're just going to say that it happened even though we didn't actually, do it. We're saying we did it, but we did not in the book, or any book for that matter, do it. So Timothy Hunter, sure, that's a thing. Um, Gotta say, I didn't actually see the betrayal thing coming. Because Constantine just so readily knew about the Black Room, I thought it was common knowledge, but I guess it wasn't. So, yeah, and then it explains why Dr. Mist was able to, survive Felix Faust for so long. Like, it was good setting down, and it was a good reveal in the end. I think it was very well laid out. It wasn't a twist just for the sake of having a twist. So, yeah, no, I'm into it. I really love Mikel Janon's art. It's fantastic. Jeff Lemire's writing style, also fantastic. The only qualm I really have with this story is the fact that it kind of felt like it was trying to split focus with the Timothy Hunter stuff. Like, that just came out of nowhere, and it feels like it's going to be setting up for a future plot. But it's so completely irrelevant to what we're doing now, just in terms of what we're seeing. Because obviously they're trying to tie it in, like, verbally with, oh, yes, it has to do with the books of magic. But does it really? Does it really right now? I feel like this is just the next arc. So overall, I am going to give this one a 7.5. Really do enjoy it. Looking forward to seeing how it continues. And I didn't know anything about Dr. Mist going into this, so hopefully he will continue to be interesting to me. National Comics Eternity #1, written by Jeff Lemire, art by Cully Hammer. This is, okay, so I did a little bit of research into this, and without getting too into the depths of it, there was a Golden Age character named Kid Eternity who was interlaced with the Shazam mythology. And as far as I can tell, it has pretty much nothing to do with this book at all. Just a same name of Eternity, and the guy's human name, which is Christopher Freeman. But Jeff Lemire has taken a totally different take on this. So jumping into it, we have Christopher Freeman. He, every night he has trouble sleeping because he has the same nightmare of him arguing with his dad and trying to say something. And then all of a sudden they were hit in a drive-by shooting, both of them heavily bleeding out on the streets. And then he feels this pulling into the place between places where he sees a whole bunch of dead people, but specifically his father, and he's like, son, come with me, come, I'm scared, I don't know any of these people. And he's like, no, Dad, let's not stay here, let's go. And he's like, no, we have to stay. And in the end, Christopher manages to cling to life and live long enough. He's okay, whereas his dad bleeds out on the street saying, you shouldn't have left me, you should have come with, which obviously is a lot to put on the son. But anyway, Christopher wakes up, and he is late for work, and he works as a coroner. He works as a coroner for the police, and he's just there to determine cause of death and whatnot. So he makes his way into work, and he's on the subway, and as he looks in the subway, he sees this man dressed in a suit staring at him. And the man gets off the train, and Christopher goes to look to see, like, who was that guy? Why was he looking at me? But as soon as he tries to find him, he's completely gone without a trace, and he's like, all right, anyway, that's weird. Also, there's a girl at work I like, and we see her working at the front desk on the phone. And he's like, she doesn't even know I'm here. I can't build up the nerve to talk to her. Gosh, I wish I could. But anyway, his boss kind of says, hey, you're late. Get down. We got a fresh one down on your table. Time to get to work. So he makes his way down, and there's a man down there died. He has some scratches on his neck, some bruising on his knuckles, but the cause of death was a gunshot wound to the heart. And so he sees this man dead there, and they don't really have any ideas to, like, who killed him or anything like that. But turns out that Christopher, he has a power set of he can, touch anybody. He can then make contact with them and go into that place between places, the place he saw before, and find their soul. As long as they died pretty much within 24 hours, he can go in there, find their soul, and bring it back up to the land of the living, and basically just ask them questions and try to get to the root of their thing. So he goes down. The guy's name was Darby Quinn, and he goes down there. He gets the soul, but as he tries to pull Darby up, the guy on the subway is there holding Darby down. He's like, not so fast. This guy is mine. But Christopher barely even notices. He manages to get Darby out of there because Darby kicks the guy off, and they make their way back to the land of the living. And Darby is, of course, slow to accept that he's dead. Christopher walks him through it. He's like, yeah, look, here's the thing. We have a limited amount of time. If we're to solve how you died, I need you to work through it. And the way that it works is he doesn't remember the 24 hours leading up to his death. He can, lead Christopher to what he remembers there, but everything else is very hazy. And as they get closer to his time being up where he has to go, he will remember more and more of it. So eventually they realize, like, okay, so the plan is I'm just going to take you back to the place where we found your body, and then maybe you'll remember something when we're there. But he sees his boss is, like, watching him talk to air at this point, and he's like, have you even started this body yet? And he's like, well, I was. And he's like, dude, your dad, he worked for us. He was the best. And that is the only reason I am giving you this job here, because frankly, you have done nothing to show that you deserve it. So go home. Rest of the day is unpaid, but you need to figure out whether or not you can actually do your job here. So at that point, Christopher's like, all right, I need to prove your case today in order to prove to my boss that I am worth keeping on. So they go back to the place where he died, which ended up being his home/shop. He lived above his shop where he sold a bunch of antique stuff. And we see that down underneath the counter is a collection of antique weaponry, including a World War II pistol that is no longer there, but the slot for it was. So it's like, okay, well, that's probably what you were shot by. I'm sure that we could find the bullet or trace the shot inside of you and see if that matches up with that sort of bullet. But anyway, let's see what more we got. Upstairs is where you actually died. So they go up to his bedroom and they see a pile of blood, and they're like, okay, well, do you keep the pistol loaded? And it's like, no, and only I knew where I kept the rounds. So that's a bit weird. But then they notice that the door leading to the upstairs is unlocked, and the upstairs is a separate tenant that he rents out. And he can't remember her name, but he knows that she dresses. By the way, this guy is like stereotypical, like super macho Italian New Yorker kind of guy. Like he's like, I'm walking here sort of thing. And he's like, her and her freaky friends, she dresses all skanky. She probably killed me and robbed me. And it's just like, well, no, you weren't robbed. So I don't know, but she is our best lead. So maybe we should try to find her. Do you remember her name? He's like, no, I don't know her name. All I know, she was in some crazy weirdo band, and she was putting up flyers, and I was tearing them down outside the shop. So Christopher goes down to the trash, finds one of the flyers, and sees that it's for the Emoticons, which the lead singer is the girl that he remembers. So they have a gig that night, and Christopher and the ghost make their way into the place, and they're basically just looking for the backstage. And at this point, Darby is starting to bleed more. He's more visibly starting to die, I guess you would say. And he's also like showing how much of a dick he really is. So Christopher, he heads backstage, and they see that the girl is there. She's sobbing uncontrollably, and Darby's just like, oh, look at her, that little slut. He's probably crying over having killed me. And it's just like, Darby, what in the hell is wrong with you? But Christopher introduces and just like, hey, look, I work with the police. You're not in trouble. I just have a few questions. But Sally immediately freaks out and pulls out the World War II gun from her purse because she thinks, that she is like about to go to prison or something like that. And it's just seeing the gun flashes back Christopher to the day his father died. He freaks out a little bit, long enough to let Sally get away. But then Christopher starts piecing it together. He's like, well, also Darby straight up says, like, I told you she did it. That little slut walked in and out of my apartment all hours of the night, bringing guys home. She was too good for me. Well, I showed her. And that's where Christopher starts putting it together of like, wait a minute, hold on. You're the only one who knew where your ammo was. You have scratches on your neck and bruises on your finger. You tried to force yourself on this girl, and then she shot you. And you brought the gun in order to force her into it, and she turned it on you. That's the whole reason this happened. So then at that point, Darby's like, yeah, whatever, she killed me. You're going to get justice for me? And he's like, no, she killed you in self-defense. You go to hell. Like, I'm done with you. And at that point, he's dragged back into the underworld. And Christopher then goes out to find Sally, who's made her way up to the roof of the nightclub. And she's about ready to jump. And Christopher talks her down and says, like, hey, look, I believe you. I can find the evidence to prove it. Just come on down. And at that point, the cops show up. His boss shows up saying, like, I have no idea how in the world you figured this out, especially on your day off. But, okay, maybe you got something. Maybe you're either incredibly lucky or you're a mad genius. But either way, you might just have more of your dad than I realized. See you at work tomorrow. So Christopher's just looking over the edge of the building, and that guy from the subway shows up again. And he's like, Christopher, You're not playing by the rules of the game here. And Christopher's like, I seen you. How do you know my name? And he's like, I know everything about you. I used to be a lot like you, but here's the deal. You can call me Mr. Keeper. You're not playing by the rules. And Christopher's like, what rules? And he's like, well, I can't tell you the rules. That's one of the rules. And he's like, okay, so what's going on? And he's like, well, you're going to need to figure them out soon, because otherwise things are going to start getting very dangerous. And Christopher's like, are you threatening me? He's like, nope, not quite, but you'll see me again soon. And he just jumps off the building, to which Christopher looks over, and again, he's not there. So next morning, Christopher finally has a good night's sleep, no nightmares. He finally feels like he has some sort of purpose. He makes his way into work, and he's like, maybe I will finally talk to that girl. But he doesn't see her there at the time, because he actually gets to work on time this time. So he makes his way downstairs, and there's a fresh body on his table, and when he pulls off the sheet, it's the girl. She died. And that's where we leave off, on a cliffhanger of interesting proportions. I gotta say, from what I read of Kid Eternity, completely different, like 200% different. But I really do enjoy the show. I believe there was a show called Pushing Up Daisies or something like that had a similar sort of premise to this. I could be wrong in that regard. But no, it's just a solid read. Cullyhammer does a great job on art. And it really just gets me into the character just within this short period. It is a bigger than normal issue. It does have extra page count, but it's just a good book. It's a solid read. I definitely would have read a whole miniseries just based off this character, but just keeping it to the one shot here, it was good. It was very good. I'm going to go and give it an 8.5. I really do enjoy it. I will say there is no good way to collect this book, so if you do want to read it, I would suggest just finding it online, buying it digitally. Otherwise, you're going to have to track down the actual paper issue like I did, which, gotta say, not the easiest, but 8.5 is definitely worth a read. And that's it. That's all the comics that came out from DC Comics this July 25th, 2012. And look, I know that I just kind of spent like 10 minutes somewhere in the middle there gushing about iVampire, but like, really though, can I just make this an iVampire podcast just to get it back on the air? Can I start a petition to get more issues of that book? I know that currently, as I'm recording this, DC has a DC versus Vampire comic that is got a bunch of spin-offs and stuff, but it's not the same. I really want this back. Give me Sorrentino and Fialkov. Anyway, okay, back on topic. Let's talk about what's coming out next week. Next week, we finally hit month number 12, coming up on a full year of this show. Dear Lord, what have I done with my life? Let's talk about what comics are coming out, though. We have the number 12 issues of Batwing, Detective Comics, Action Comics, Red Lanterns, Green Arrow, Justice League International, Stormwatch, Animal Man, and Swamp Thing. Additionally, we have the number 4 issues of Earth 2, World's Finest, GI Combat, and Dial H. Some of those number 12s are actually final issues, I think. Do not hold me to that. There might be a 0 issue for a couple of them. Additionally, the Animal Man and Swamp Thing issues are the official prologues to the multi-issue, multi-series spanning event Rot World, so be sure to listen in on those next month. But until then, all I have to leave you with is the contractual obligations. So, if you want to tell me anything about the comics you thought about this week, next week, any week, go ahead and hit me up on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast, all one word, at DC Comics Podcast. I will most likely read them because I don't have anything better to do in my free time. Additionally, we have a Patreon, Mild Fuzz TV, all one word. For as low as $1, you can get some bonus stuff that I have no part in. So enjoy that. But that is it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however it is you consume this media. Be sure to tune in next week. And as always, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.